We have an interesting turn of events that we got to sound the alarm on, because it looks like we're going to have some competition at the running back spot in Carolina between Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. It looks like it's going to turn out that way. We're hearing it from Dave Canales himself. It's being swept under the radar because Miles Sanders didn't look good last year. We're going to cover that as well, but we got to do a deep dive on the Carolina backfield, mainly Miles Sanders, to see whether or not we need to take an interest of this. But before we do, you need to click that subscribe button right now. This is the only channel that's doing deep dives on hot topic players off the waiver wire, guys climbing depth charts, just finding interviews and weird stuff being said that we can talk about. Not saying we have to react, but we can talk about. It's all right here. I'm going to help you set your lineups with these videos too. Click that button. Stop missing out. But we got to go deep into the paint here. We got to look at Dave Canales, see what he's saying here. It's very interesting because he laid down some very intriguing points here.
Yeah, there's value to both. So just talking to running backs over the years, there's value to letting a guy be out there and get the rhythm, to really start breathing, start seeing the runs, pressing it, feeling how the line's blocking on that day, you know. And then there's a flip side of it where you have two really good backs and you just rotate them through, you know. And if a guy has a couple of plays stacked together and has a nice long run, you know, then you can get the other guy and you have fresh legs to be able to attack it that way. So that's really the approach that we would hope for, to keep, you know, Miles and Chuba just continuing to you know, spot each other as we go through it. And of course, third downs as well, you know, counting on those guys with protection and what they can do in the pass game. He's looked fantastic. He came into camp just with this focus and this seriousness about the way he's worked. You know, he's really emerging as a leader. Chuba has as well. So we have great leadership coming out of that room. It's really one of the featured rooms on our team in terms of the character of what we're looking for. The guys that are out there are available, work hard, finish runs, you know, and they kind of set the tone for what we're doing. So I'm really pleased with that group as a whole.
This looks like it might be a committee. It might be a split where they're operating with the hot hand. They're rolling with the hot running back. And Miles Sanders, from what he said, and from what I've seen from some clips from training camp, but it wasn't a large enough sample for me to draw any conclusions from, Miles Sanders looks better. He's got pop in the step. He's very driven this year. I saw that on a few clips, but not enough to really mention that because it was just a handful, and really it was just an ancillary piece of the clips I was looking at because I was looking at other players on the Panthers. But Miles Sanders might be getting some work. What would that look like with Chuba this year? That could look like a 50-50 split. He might get 30%. And the thing is, people are soured on Miles Sanders, but Miles Sanders is looking good in camp. This is a new coaching staff. This coaching staff doesn't care what he did last year. If he's looking good now and they can trust him now, they're going to roll with that. You know how coaches are. You know how coaches are if you played with them. And you're looking at this backfield. Jonathan Brooks will be back soon. It's a battle with Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. Chuba Hubbard looked like the guy going in, felt like the guy going in after what he did last year. Miles Sanders, we just sounded an alarm on him. We're just sounding an alarm. You may want to go get him. You may not. You may be fighting for him off the waiver wire. Next week, that might be happening, but we're sounding the alarm here to pay attention to Miles Sanders and what's going on. He does have some hop in the step and does have some speed. Second round draft pick from a long time ago, but the injury history from last year. So he had a groin sprain back in August of last year, causing him to miss 10 practices. However, week 4, which was not noted on this injury history app over on our lads, but over here on Player Profiler, week 4, and it happened for a few weeks because of the injury reports, another groin sprain. So that means he's been dealing with this issue for the start of the season. Then after that, during the same time period, shoulder soreness. So he was banged up, and you look at the numbers here, he was playing through that. A groin strain doesn't easily go away, and you're seeing the red marks there. That's him putting up fantasy points. That means he's on the field. That means he's working through that. So what if he's healthy and he's back to where he was like in 2022? I get it. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it's enough to siphon touches, enough to steal workload, enough to scratch your head, enough to look at for a free player off the waiver wire or a guy that's dirt-free in Dynasty or whatever you want to do to set your lineups with. Positional ranking right now, 52 rostered, and 13.8% of leagues on ESPN. So in ESPN, they're pretty aggressive for him. I would guess it'd be like 7%, 2%, something like that, because on Underdog ADP, he was undraftable. He's not even on the chart. People weren't looking at him. Chuba Hubbard was getting it done last year. He was looking good. And you look at the numbers here, fantasy points wise, very dependable for fantasy football, looking good 2 RB1 weeks. But you go over and look at the efficiency last year, true yards per carry, 48th among running backs, 49th yards per touch, 33rd breakaway run rate. So he's not really that efficient with the ball. And you go back here, he was just good at getting volume. Good at getting volume to get that fantasy production. We were counting on that volume. And if that volume gets siphoned away and he's getting more like 11, 12 opportunities, that's touches and targets, that's going to hurt him. That's going to put him down a good bit. So you better be wary on Chuba Hubbard. But on Underdog, nobody's going after Miles Sanders, like I said. Nobody was drafting him. You get it. I understand because Jonathan Brooks is there. Once Jonathan Brooks is in this backfield, those 2 running backs are going to get zapped anyways. And Miles Sanders was not looking good. And nobody was really talking about Miles Sanders in training camp except for kind of me, because I saw those couple clips and was like, hey, if you're in a deep league, you may want to look at him. But I did not know that we needed to sound the alarm this early from this press conference. You don't need them, though, because you don't have room to stash them. We don't have any guarantees here. It's just coach speak. But the writing's kind of on the wall when you deep dive the numbers a little bit. So something you want to pay attention to. So you just want to stash or watch, more than likely watch, but it really depends on your team. I guarantee it, you're going to think about it, but you look at the guys on your bench and you're not going to be able to do it. That's the thing about that. But you want to watch. You want the alarm to sound on these players. When I do a you need video, you need to watch the player more often than not. You need the alarm to sound. You need to pay attention to the player. We need to pay attention to this backfield the first few weeks of the season before Jonathan Brooks is back, because it could be rather ambiguous. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.